Hello friends, OpenToonz 1.7 is now out. But is it worth upgrading to? And what's the difference about it compared to version 1.6? Well, to answer that, I'm going to tell you my top 10 favourite new features in this version, and then at the end we'll consider if you should upgrade. And if you are new to OpenToonz, then these features just skim the surface, so stay tuned to the end for details of how to get the most out of this free 2D animation software, and how to install or upgrade to it. So let's go with new feature number 1. So first, let's start with a small new feature that will help when working with references, and that's the ability to change the opacity of the main OpenToonz window. So from the Windows menu, choose the item at the very bottom, toggle main window's see-through mode, or press the keyboard shortcut Alt and single backquote. And this dialog appears with the initial value set to 50%, and you can see straight away what it does. I can see anything that's behind the program, and that could be an image, something on an internet page, a video, or whatever. So now you can still draw in OpenToonz using the image behind as a reference or for rotoscoping. And you can change the opacity by dragging the slider to see more of OpenToonz or more of your image. And there's this button to the right for quickly turning this off and back on again. And if you hold Alt when you press that button, the main program is hidden, so now you can change your image or move to the next frame of the video, or whatever you need to do without moving OpenToonz. And then just click the button again to bring OpenToonz back. And this is a really neat feature that I think you'll find very useful. And there's some keyboard shortcuts for this that you'll find on the GitHub page that I've linked to in the description. And in fact, you'll find a page for each new feature in the description, so do check those out for the full details of each new feature. And for feature number 2, I've got a super quick feature that I know you'll grasp straight away. First, use the selection tool, highlight part of your image that you want to work with, and you'll now notice on the options toolbar, you'll see these two buttons next to the horizontal and vertical values. So just click those, and you'll see you can now flip horizontally and vertically with a single click. And they're really just shortcuts for negating the percentage value in the box, which isn't an obvious thing to do, so they're a great shortcut for those. And also, there's these two buttons to rotate your selection by 90 degrees, left and right. And again, they're just a shortcut for entering values in the rotation box or trying to manually rotate by 90 degrees. And it's just the sort of small feature you expect to have with any drawing tool, so it's great to have this in OpenToonz. And the second part to this is that these same options are available for the Animate tool. So just change to the Animate tool, then change the type to the Scale option. And there again are the two flip buttons. And clicking on them sets an animation key on the timeline, just as it would if you'd manually flip the column. And again, you've got the rotate buttons too. Just change to the rotation option, and here they are. And if you've got enough screen space for the tool options bar, changing to the all type shows them all on the toolbar, with rotation here, and the horizontal flip and vertical flip there. The next item is a real game changer for drawing inside OpenToonz. And again, it's something you'd expect to already be in a drawing program like this. So it just brings OpenToonz up to date with your expectations. And that's the ability to draw straight lines with the brush tool. Now, of course, you can use the line option of the geometric tool, but this means you'll be swapping between the brush tool and the geometry tool, and changing the line thickness in each to keep it the same between both tools. So to use this new feature, just choose the brush tool, then hold down the Shift key before you start drawing. And then as you draw, you'll see this line appear, showing you where your line will be drawn. And you can release Shift now if you want to. And then when you release your pen, you'll get the line. And with Shift, you can draw lines at any angle. But if you want to have your lines locked to fixed angles, hold the Control key instead. And then when you draw, this locks your line to 45-degree increments. Perfect for drawing horizontal and vertical lines. And using these key modifiers, it means it becomes much easier to change between drawing curved lines and then straight lines. And also much easier to draw in perspective. And I hope you're enjoying this quick tour of the new features. If so, please do give this video a like and consider supporting the channel in other ways, details of which are in the description. So let's give peace a chance with feature number 4. And this one is still a feature around drawing, and it involves a long-standing fill issue. And sometimes when filling, small spaces are left, especially when you have lines close together or are using anti-aliasing. So this feature is just a shortcut to the process of selecting a colour, then choosing the fill mode, filling with that colour, then choosing the next colour, filling in that area, choosing the next colour, filling again, and so on. And that can be a tedious, slow process. So instead of that, from the Fill Bucket tool, choose the new pick and freehand mode, and then all you need to do is to click and drag from the colour that you want to fill with over the area that you want to fill. So click from the green into the space and it fills that in, or you can drag around it. So click and drag around the gaps from the colour and those are filled in that way. And you don't need to change the colour in between each fill operation. Wherever you start picking from, that's the colour that is used. And this saves trying to find the colour from a potentially large list of colours. So you can just go through and fill. Now before we move on, one quick tip I want to give you to prevent some of those gaps in the first place is to increase the fill depth. And that's this slider here on the tool options bar when you're using the fill bucket. So increase that towards the top, and this sets how far into the anti-aliased areas to fill. So for light anti-aliasing, you can keep it low, and then for heavy anti-aliasing, move it up towards the top. So why not try that out along with this new pick and freehand fill feature? Stop what you're doing. Let's look at the next new feature, which is the enhanced viewer preview. And this is a great feature and brings some of the benefits of the preview window into this main viewer. So you may know that to preview your animation, that is, to see how your final render will look, including any effects, you click the leftmost I button at the top right of the viewer. And that previews the current frame. And when you move to the next frame, or a different frame, that frame's preview is calculated and shown, and so on. And if you hit play, you can see this working one frame at a time. And it's a really slow process that you can now speed up. And you do that by right-clicking on that preview button at the top right, and you see two new options up here. The first one is the current frame, and that's what OpenToonz has always done. It just previews one frame at a time. And the second is to preview all the frames in your play range. So now if I turn the preview off and on again, you'll see that the preview bar beneath the viewer works through all of the frames and they're now all set up for viewing. So if I hit play, it can play at the full speed without having to wait for the preview of each frame. And the final option will regenerate all of the selected cells and then autoplay those. So if I select that, turn off the preview, and then select a number of cells, when I turn on the preview, it'll regenerate those 18 or so frames and play them on a loop. So this is really handy if you need to make lots of changes and then play to see them over and over again. Now feature number 6. So let's take a look at the improvements to the graph view of the function editor. So first, let's go to the schematic. I'll choose a column to show and click the button at the top right of the function editor to show the graph view. And you can change how the graph view is shown on the function editor from the preferences. So the first change is a minor change to the colour of the lines so they're easier to see on darker themes. Along with having this circle on the ends of the handles for adjusting the speed in and speed out so they're easier to grab. And the second change is that you can change the scale across multiple keys. So showing 4 keys here for the X movement, if I click and drag over all of them, which highlights them and makes them editable, now I can hold Alt and then click and drag one of the end keys either on the left or on the right, and notice that the keys in the middle move with it at a variable rate but keeping the spacing equal. And this is really useful if you have your spacing set out but just need to slow down or speed up the transitions through the time. Feature number 7. So next I want to show you the change to the timeline colour filters. And I know that some of you might never have seen these at all, but we've had them in OpenToonz for a while now. So let me quickly show you that. To use them, just open the drop down on the column that you want affected and choose a colour filter from this drop down. And that applies a filter over all of the drawings in that column. And this is handy for 2 reasons. First, you can easily see which drawings are in which column, which helps when you're tracing over a sketch, so you can see your new lines while you're making a neater copy. And it's also good to use with the opacity option, so you can make your sketch lines fainter. But these just affect what you see when you draw and not what is rendered. If you want to render with this colour filter and opacity, simply tick the box on the scene settings available from the X sheet. So now you're using these filters to affect your rendered output. And this can be a really fun thing to do. Just try drawing in black and then render different colours of the same image. So that's what we've had for a while, but what's new? Well, what's new is these colours used to be fixed. You couldn't change them, but now we can. So if we go back and open the scene settings again from the X sheet menu, you'll now see this button to edit the filters. So click that and we'll get this dialog. So you can just select on the colour box and then adjust it here in the colour editor and change its name if you wish. So if I always use red for sketch drawings, we can call this sketch. And now when you open the colour drop down, you'll see your new colour and name. So it's clearer what you should be using each colour filter for. So you're no longer limited to these 6 simple colours. You can now actually create up to 10 unique colours of your own. So we can add a new colour at the bottom here of the list. Let's make it a deep purple colour. And again, let's give that a nice name. So we can use this for our ink columns. So again, it's clear which colour filter is used for what. And if you change your mind, you can always click the delete button here. So applying colour filters is really flexible. Why not give it a go? New feature number 8. Well, actually, I've got 3 new features to show in this section, and there are 3 new export options. So first off, there's now an easy way to share a scene with someone else. And this is useful if you're working with somebody else, or if you want to share your scene to help figure out a problem you might be having. And you can always do this from the browser, but now it's been made so much easier. So simply from the File menu, you'll see an Export Flyout, and the top option, Export Current Scene. So let's choose that. So from this dialog, you can choose to export this scene from this project into a different project at the top here, or choose to create a new project at the bottom, which is the most likely thing you want to do. So simply give your new project a name and tell it where you want to export to, and then click Export. And that's it. You've got a new project folder on disk that you can choose to zip up and send to a friend. So the next export option is the option to export to OCA format. That's the Open Cell Animation format. And this is used by lots of other animation software. So now you can export your scene out of OpenToonz and into that software, like After Effects or Blender. And there's some limitations to it, so please do take a look at the link to this feature that I've put down in the description. And finally, for exporting, I've got a fun one for you. And it's a feature to allow you to export the camera movements to an image. And this is to help you plan out your backgrounds, if you paint them in another program, or to use the camera movement as a reference in compositing programs like After Effects. So I've added a camera movement here just to demonstrate. So if I switch to the camera view and then hit play, the camera starts off at Dwanko's feet, zooms out a bit so you can see all of him, and then pans to the side. So to export this camera movement, go to the File menu, Export menu again, and choose Export Camera Track. And you get to see the camera movement here on the left hand side. And there's quite a few settings on the right that you can change. And again, you can find details of each of these on the linked post in the description. So once you've made any changes to settings, click Export, choose a folder to save into, and now save into the Outputs folder. Then name the image, and camera is just fine. And you can change the image format just by typing it in with the name. So I'll change this to camera.png. And then if I open the image, you'll see the image with boxes showing each key point of the movement and the steps to move around. So if I zoom in a little bit, you'll see the camera starts off at the bottom here. It then zooms out, and you can see the frame numbers as the camera zooms out to the center point of where the camera is. Then it scrolls to the right, and again, that's the ending point with the frame number shown there in the center. And for those of you that use an external compositing software, you should start to see how you could use it. So give it a go. And of course, you will have noticed other export options in that menu, and you should take a look at those when you're ready. So the 9th new feature I want to highlight today is the additional support for audio formats. So firstly, the audio recording dialog has had a makeover, and you can find that in the Windows menu. So this is for recording audio directly in OpenToonz without using another program. So first, you can choose the audio input device. You can choose to record up to 44 kHz instead of just 8 kHz, so your recordings will now be much clearer. And you can choose the sample format to record in. And there's been tooltips added to each of the controls, so you can clearly know what each control is for and the recommended setting to use. Plus there's been many bug fixes here, including changing the size of the window and controls. So overall, it's now just much easier to use. There's also been full support added for 24-bit and 32-bit audio files, so you should be able to import more audio files than you used to. Because a common complaint I heard from users was asking why their audio file couldn't be imported, and you may have had this too. And this will fix many of those issues. Plus, as well as WAV, AIF and MP3 import, you can now also import OGG and FLAC files too. And there have been some fixes for recording audio on a Mac, so if you use a Mac, you'll find that audio recording now works. And while I'm mentioning bugs, it's worth pointing out that there have been dozens of bug fixes throughout the whole program since the last release, both big and small. Far too many to mention today, but so many areas of the program have been improved. So before I reveal today's 10th new feature, which happens to be my favourite new feature of the year, I just want to quickly thank my Patreon supporters for all your support, with special thanks to Maria, Robert and Rodney, who along with the supporters on my Tea Mug and Teapot tiers, can all watch my tutorial videos a week early, can download the projects I use in the videos, including those from today's video, as well as lots of other benefits, so why not check that out. So like a zombie raising from the dead, we've shambled our way to my 10th and final favourite feature. And that's the ability to paste images from the clipboard. And this is a long overdue and long asked for feature in OpenToonz, and it basically allows you to copy any image into your computer's clipboard and paste it into OpenToonz. So if you've drawn part of your background or character in another program, you can highlight it and choose to copy it, and then come over to OpenToonz, click in the timeline and choose Paste from the Edit menu, or just press the keyboard shortcut Ctrl+V, and then choose to add a new raster level, and it'll paste into that raster level. And now this is just part of an image in a new raster level, so you can choose the selection tool, highlight it, and then resize it, holding the Shift key to keep the aspect ratio the same, rotate it, holding Control, you can skew it at the corners, or use the standard drawing tools like the eraser or the brush tool to paint over the top. And if you've already got a raster level, going to the next empty frame and then choose the selection tool and click on screen, and now if you paste an image, it'll be pasted already with the whole image highlighted as part of the selection. So you can then resize it and reposition it without having to select it first. And one more tip for you, if you're using Windows, there's a built-in feature to copy an image into your clipboard from anywhere on screen. Just press the Windows key, holding Shift and then tap S, and the screen goes darker, and then you can click and drag to highlight a section of your screen, and that'll be copied to the clipboard, and then again, using the selection tool, click on screen and press Ctrl V to paste that image. And again, you can resize it using the selection or rotate it or manipulate it in any way the selection tool allows. And again, going to a blank frame first, we'll paste the image into that blank frame. So let's take another copy. And this time I'll highlight part of the timeline. And again, just press Ctrl V and it'll create a new drawing with that image in it. And this is such a useful small feature. I'm so pleased it's been added, and I'm sure you will be too. So that's my 10 favourite new features out now in version 1.7. And I could easily have picked 10 more, but we don't have time to go through all of those. So should you upgrade to this new version? Well, those of you that know me and have seen my previous videos about new versions already know the answer. And that is a very big yes. Every new version always has new features that you might find helpful and bug fixes that make the program more stable. And 1.7 is no exception. So let me quickly show you how to upgrade to this version. And it might seem obvious at first, but trust me, there's a few things about it that always catches someone out. So first, head over to the OpenToonz page. Then click on the download link at the top, choose OpenToonz, scroll down, and now you can click the official 1.7.1 download, but I always recommend downloading the nightly build. This will have any of the new features and fixes in it since the official version was released, and already since 1.7 came out there have been extra bugs fixed. In fact, that's why the official download is 1.7.1 and not just 1.7. There was an emergency bug fix patch added. So please download the nightly build. And it might be worth coming back here in a month or two and upgrading to a newer nightly build. There are fixes and changes being added all the time. So when it's downloaded, you can just double click to install it. And for new users, this is all you need to do. But for upgrading from an earlier version, for some people that can work, but I have had issues in the past with this, so I prefer a full clean install. And to get that, you simply rename your OpenToonz stuff folder. And this is the folder where your settings are stored. So by renaming it, the install will have to create a new folder, and that will guarantee to have only the settings that this version needs. So once you've done that, run the installer. And after it's completed, if you'd created any projects in the old version, copy these back to your new OpenToonz stuff folder. And here's a quick tip for you. To save copying your projects around after updating like this each time, just tick the box in your preferences to allow saving projects to your documents folder or any of the other options here. And then create all of your projects in there and you won't have to move them on the next install. You just retick this box. So that's version 1.7. Lots of new features, lots of bug fixes. And I hope you feel inspired to try it out or to upgrade to this new version. And please do subscribe and hit that bell to catch my upcoming tutorials showing more features of this fantastic free 2D animation software. And if you want to see how to get started with OpenToonz, check out this video just here. And next week I'll create a video showing how to get the best out of OpenToonz, and you'll find that just over here. So I'll see you soon for more tutorials. And that's a guarantee.